welcome. Here we are, episode number 21 of Tilted Podcast. Normally I'm with my co-host Tyler and Brad, but busy time of year for a lot of people. Brad is traveling to Nashville, Tennessee to celebrate his son's 21st. Horton is slammed busy with everything going on at home, and I have a little bit of downtime being on vacation, so figured I would jump on by myself, and there's a lot going on in the world of sports, so I wanted to discuss some of it and wanted to kind of go through what we've seen in the first round of the college football playoff, what to expect for the next round, some of our initial thoughts, my initial thoughts, I guess I should say, as well as what's currently going on in the NFL. We are already, 2 games into or 3 games into this week, so pick the remainder of the week, give some ideas on some different bets and parlays that we might be looking into. So bear with me. I'm used to having a co-host with me. This is my first time flying solo, so buckle up. Let's see how this works out. Let's get rolling. All right, so what we just witnessed over the last week or so, last weekend primarily, was the first round of the highly anticipated 12-team college football playoff. And there's a lot of layers to this that I want to unpack here. The first thing being, and I think the most important thing, because I think my initial reaction to this was, my God, it was a terrible first round. And we should have gotten better, right? Like, we were looking forward to this. Let me move this a little bit. We were anticipating and very anxious for this playoff, and it just did not seem to live up to the hype. But the more I thought about it, my overall takeaway of the first round was, the first thing I thought about was, this is awesome. Normally we get 3 playoff games. We had 4 the very first weekend. Did they live up to the hype? No. Did we think some other teams could have been in, maybe put up a better fight? Yes, and we'll talk through some of those things. But how cool is it to see a home playoff game in Notre Dame on Friday night? Right? A home playoff game for Penn State and the whiteout crowd. And, those are things that some of these seniors and people that earned the right to have these home playoff games, I think that was really cool. And I think the overall, the playoff, getting to 12 teams, which inevitably I think is going to be 14 to 16 teams, I think it's really good for the sport. So to kind of walk through some of these games, the first game we had here was Friday night. It was Indiana, Notre Dame. I'm going to be honest with you. I was really shocked at this game. I wasn't a big fan of Indiana coming into it. I wasn't a big fan of Indiana throughout the season. I didn't think they played anybody. That coach talked a lot of shit. And I really thought that offense would back it up. I was shocked at the lack of offensive performance until the very end there. 63 total rushing yards, 215 total passing yards, but I think a lot of that came in garbage time at the end when they got those last 2 scores. So I think this says more about Notre Dame's defense than I think Indiana's offense. I'm way impressed with Notre Dame's defense, and I think Riley Leonard did just enough offensively for Notre Dame to keep them in the game. They had a hell of a rush game, and they just ran the hell out of the ball. So impressed with Notre Dame's defense, disappointed in Indiana's offense, but they had me drinking the water. Early on in the year, I wasn't a big Indiana guy. Being anti-Indiana, being a Michigan guy, I just didn't see it. And I started to believe it there towards the end when they gave Ohio State somewhat of a fight. And I got caught up in the moment, and Indiana proved to me to be someone, in my opinion, that probably was not deserving to be in the playoff at the end there. I think Miami, Alabama, any of those folks would have given up a better fight, would have been a better production, would have been a better first-round matchup, in my opinion, for Notre Dame. But on the Notre Dame side, they proved something to me, right? So as you guys have heard, if you guys listen here, we talk about college football. I'm always a Notre Dame hater. Not necessarily Notre Dame hater as far as like they're not a good team, but as far as like, hey, I want you to play somebody. I want you to get into a conference and have 3 or 4 top 10 games a year, top 25 games a year. And then if you're still 11-1, 12-0, 10-2 at the end of the year, then you're in the playoff and there's no complaining about that. But that defense showed up against an offense that performed throughout the year. And I would have said it going into it. I believe Notre Dame belongs in the playoff, and I believe should garner some attention going into the next round facing Georgia. I think that's going to be a much better game than most people think. But we can talk about that as we get going. Going on the next morning, Saturday morning, we had SMU at Penn State. I think this was the game that I think was tilting the scales here as far as like SMU comes out and how are they going to perform. If they come out and they perform well, they belonged in and the committee got it right. If they come out and get boat raced, the committee got it wrong. The committee clearly got it wrong here, guys. The committee clearly got it wrong. It should have been Alabama in that game. Kudos to Penn State for coming through and showing up. But it was very obvious that SMU did not belong. It was very obvious that SMU hadn't played anybody. So kind of a fugazi here on the record and the resume. 189 total rushing yards for Penn State, held SMU to 58. Only 136 passing yards total, 127 from Drew Aller. But it's just he didn't need to do it. The game was perfectly in control, and they steamrolled from start to finish. Tyler Warren, kind of a quiet day. I think that goes right into it. Hey, they were just rushing the hell out of the ball. They had 40 total carries. Penn State did. So I think that's a sign of good things to come. They play good defense, run the ball. I think they'll make a good showing in the next round. So next game here actually ended up being a little bit worse than I thought. I guess we got the good Quinn Ewers, right? We had Clemson at Texas. Ewers just really hasn't been playing that well. He came out and played pretty good in that game, better than I anticipated him to. Klubnik played well as well. Ended up being they were a 13.5 point favorites. I think I got them at somewhere around 12.5. And I liked Clemson to get to that 12.5, but they did end up ultimately losing by 14. But they had it there. They were, within 7 into that fourth quarter. So I think that game was a little bit closer than it appeared. But by far was the best game of the weekend, which is crazy. It was a 14-point game. Texas really controlled it for the most part. As soon as there was a little bit of doubt, a little bit of the idea that Clemson can come back and make a run at it, Texas really pulled away. And then I really think the disappointing one of the weekend, and not just because everybody knows I'm an Ohio State hater and I was rooting hard for Tennessee. Not because of that, but I think just because this was the only matchup in the first round where these two teams are playoff teams. These two teams are legit playoff teams. They deserve to be here. Tennessee's a no-doubter. Ohio State's a no-doubter. This is going to be a fantastic matchup. SEC versus Big Ten at the Shoe in Columbus. I just think we just had a lot of expectations for this game. At least I did. And maybe I was wrong, but I thought this was going to be the best game of the weekend. And it was just absolutely not. I mean, that Ohio State just absolutely boat raced them, and there was never even a shot there. Nico held to 140 yards passing. Tennessee did rush for 152. But Ohio State, Will Howard, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns, 156 yards on the ground for Ohio State. Travion Henderson leading the charge with 10 rushes for 80. Jeremiah Smith, that freshman's an unbelievable receiver for Ohio State. So I hated to see it. 42-17 ended up being the final. I think they got a garbage time. I think I turned it off when it was 42-10. But, I think this was a game that I really thought was going to be much better than it was. But this is what is good and bad about people getting buys. Ohio State is extremely confident, and riding a real high right now going into the Rose Bowl. So that's really my take on the first round. I think it was disappointing. I think the game stunk. I think Miami and Alabama instead of SMU and Indiana probably makes a lot of sense. Now when you really think about the resumes and overall resumes and how they played against top teams. And at some point you have to, you have to think about what's the best teams and understanding overall how many times you played a ranked team. And what they could do is there just needs to be someone that is in charge of scheduling and make sure every team has a certain amount of preseason ranked opponents on their schedule. And that I get it throughout the year. By the time they play in October, November, they may not be ranked. It is what it is. But you have an AP top 25, and if you can make sure every team, in some of these big conferences have at least one or two of these top ranked games on their schedule, I think that eliminates a lot of things. It had SMU or Indiana played some of these top guys, and we're still 11-1, 10-2, whatever they were. I think there's no question, but the fact that there was a question, and the fact that this is the performance they put up in the first round, I think it just proved that. I think we would have much rather seen as fans, SMU out, Indiana out, Miami and Alabama in, and I know my co-host Brad feels the exact same way being an Alabama fan. So, nothing we could do about it now. But looking forward to the next round, New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. I believe the first game, I have it up here. The first game is going to be New Year's Eve, 4:30, 7:30 Eastern. New Year's Eve, Boise at Penn State. I think a lot of people are pulling for Boise just because they have an opportunity at this. Penn State looked really, really good against SMU. It is going to be in the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona, so I think I don't think there's going to be much of a home field. I think the crowds are going to be pretty much equal. Being New Year's Eve, I'm not going to go into who's the favorite and the picks on that. I'm hoping we can all hop on a pod Monday or so in order to pick some of these games and get this out. So you got Boise versus Penn State. Then you got the Peach Bowl, which Arizona State versus Texas. I believe that's in Atlanta. You got Oregon versus Ohio State at the Rose Bowl, and Georgia versus Notre Dame at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. So those are your next round. I'm just going to rank these games at the level of which I think how competitive these games are going to be. I think the most competitive game here this weekend is by far, obviously next week, sorry, not this weekend, is by far going to be Oregon and Ohio State. I've been looking forward to this. I thought we were going to get this in the Big Ten championship game, but ultimately Michigan upset the Buckeyes again, and are now, we're not even showing the whole thing here, and did not play there. So I've said since the get-go, I would love to see Oregon Ohio State on a neutral field. It was a 1-point game at Oregon earlier on in the year. I think 33-32 or 33-31, something like that. But then a 1 or 2 point game. And neutral field at the Rose Bowl, in my opinion, one of the best settings for sports. I was at the Rose Bowl last year being a Michigan fan, seeing Michigan beat Alabama in overtime to go to the national championship game. What an experience that was. I think this is going to be quite the experience for both of these teams. This is the game I'm by far looking forward to the most. The next game that I'm looking forward to the most, and I kind of jumped ahead a little bit earlier, I was very impressed with Notre Dame's defense. And I do not know what we're going to be getting from Gunnar Stockton. I believe that's the assumed starter for Georgia going into round 2 or going into this playoff. I think Notre Dame's going to give them everything they can handle. I think defensively, they're going to be able to have some answers for Gunnar, and I think that, I think that run game for Notre Dame is going to be able to stand tall against Georgia. So, I haven't seen the spreads. I don't even know the spreads in order for me to even begin to give you guys a guess or prediction. But I think this is going to be the second best game of the week. Third best game, really close here, is Arizona, Texas, because I just don't know what you're going to get from the what Quinn Ewers you're going to get for Texas, right? Like, he's played really well. I was going into this playoff, is Sarkisian going to have the balls and the game plan to throw Archie Manning in when need be? Quinn Ewers was not called upon in that game, but will it be called upon in this game against Arizona State? Arizona State's one of the hottest teams in college football, but a lot of these guys that had a first-round bye are now cold, and they have a couple of weeks off. And a lot of these guys coming are riding a high at momentum, riding into this next round. They just had a big win at home, emotional win, a home playoff game. And then I think I like Penn State heavy here. I believe against Boise. Boise is a great story, but I think Penn State is a really good team, and I think I don't think this one's going to be particularly close. So if I had to rank these things, I got number one. I got the Rose Bowl. I got Oregon and Ohio State at the Rose Bowl. Georgia, Notre Dame at the Sugar Bowl. Arizona State, Texas, the Peach Bowl, and then New Year's Eve, Boise and Penn State. That's going to be my 1 through 4. Again, we'll get into more of the predictions when we get our guys back in the saddle here after this weekend, and maybe we can go through and kind of get their takes on what they thought of the first round, and what they're expecting in some of our predictions for the next round, and maybe finally get their predictions for the college, actually who's going to win it. So we'll go next round, and then at that point the Final Four, and get their predictions overall. So maybe we'll get that out Monday, Tuesday morning, something like that. But that is my initial take here. I'm excited to see Ashton Jeanty can change the game for Boise and take the ball out of Penn State's hands. That's going to be the name of the game for them. And if Notre Dame can run the ball against Georgia, that's going to be huge. So I worry about those Buckeyes, man. I'm obviously going to be rooting for Oregon, but I do not know what the spread is, and I do not know where my pick is going to lie come next week. So we'll see what happens. But overall, I think really cool that we had that first round of the playoff, but overall pretty disappointing as far as the value of games and how good these games were and stuff like that. So, but that's it for college. We're going to jump on over now to the NFL. And there's lots of really cool things going in the NFL. Crazy that we're sitting here. It's Friday and we're already 3 games in. We're going to take a quick glance back at some of the games that were this week. Last night was an absolute, I could have clawed my, thank God I didn't watch that game. I could have clawed my eyes out. 6-3, Seattle. I sure hope Seattle doesn't make the playoffs. I think I've said it earlier. I wasn't a big fan of Seattle. I do think they might potentially be in the quarterback market moving forward. Chicago's an absolute dumpster fire. Poor Caleb. I know a lot of people hate on Caleb, but I don't think he was thrown in the best position. They have, he got thrown in with a bad defensive coach. I think the best is ahead for Caleb. Maybe not next year, but definitely the year after that. Get themselves an offensive coach to go in there. He has weapons, but he's a lot of bad things that got to get worked out. I want to give the example of when I believe a couple of months ago, Bo Nix and Sean Payton were going at it on the sidelines. And when they interviewed Sean Payton about it, Sean Payton said, there's a lot of Ferris Bueller. There's still a little bit of Ferris Bueller I got to get out of him. Like kind of wild and got to take that out of his game or, coach that out of him and stuff like that. And Caleb hasn't had any of that. He doesn't have. I'm looking for Ben Johnson from the Lions, maybe Cliff Kingsbury from the Commanders. Some of those big offensive minds to go to Chicago. Pete Carroll's also interested in that. I think I'd prefer the other two for him. I think he gets an offensive mind, pro-style coach that's going to come in and coach the bad habits out of him. And also coach the bad habits, out of the people around him. Because you think about it, he's going to set the record for being sacked the most. Now, I know a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's holding on to the ball too long. But, coach a lot of those bad habits out for the other players in the on his team too. So, the Ravens are an absolute wagon. I think overall, I think you can classify the Texans as a pretty big disappointment. They're going to get into the playoff just because of the division they're in. But I am disappointed in Stroud. I know they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, but I really thought they were going to be way better than they are this year. The Ravens are really taking shape right now. They're going to come through and steal this AFC North, where the Steelers were. I think they were 10-3 a few weeks ago. Now they're 10-6 and not in control of their own destiny to host a playoff game. I didn't believe in the Steelers to begin with. I'm disappointed they couldn't beat Kansas City because I will root against Kansas City every single day of the week. But again, the AFC now goes through Kansas City based off of Christmas Day. So, really not a whole lot. Really not a whole lot in the first 3 games of the week. So, looking forward to now that the rest of this week, we have some Saturday football and Sunday football and Monday football, bleeding right into New Year's Eve, right, where you have college football playoff games. So it's a really good time for football. So we'll get started here. There is a few. Let me pull this up. I have the playoff scenarios here. So for the Chargers, that's the first game on the docket. The Chargers can clinch a playoff berth with a win or a Miami loss or tie plus a Colts loss. So a win and they're in. They are 4.5-point favorites on the road against the Patriots. I like the Chargers here minus 4.5. I just don't think the Patriots are going to be able to score points on this Chargers defense. Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter has these guys dialed in on the defensive side. I think this is more of like a 20-10 Chargers victory, 24-10 Chargers victory, something like that. I respect the hell out of the Patriots defense as well. So I don't think the Chargers are going to go out there and throw 30 or 40 on them, but I don't think the Patriots are also going to score that many points. So I could see a 20-10 ball game here, Chargers covering the 4.5. The next one is the one I am probably looking forward to the most because it creates chaos here. So you got the Broncos on the road in Cincinnati. Cincinnati Bengals are 3-point favorites at home, which I always view that as pretty much a pick 'em. I think you're going to get a 2.5 points, 2.5 points when you're at home anyway. Broncos win, and they are in the playoffs. Lose, and the Bengals have life. This is the Bengals season on the absolute line here. So I don't have a Bengals clinching scenario here because obviously they cannot clinch. But if they can knock the Broncos off this week, the Bengals then I think go and play Cleveland next week. The Broncos go and play Kansas City, which at first you're thinking, oh, the Broncos will lose to Kansas City. But now Kansas City has this thing all wrapped up. So now are they going to bench? Are they going to sit their players? I don't know. So if the Bengals can pull off a win tomorrow at home, then that will create a scenario to where if the Broncos lose to Kansas City next week and the Bengals beat Cleveland, the Bengals will get that last wild card spot. So just for pure sanity and insanity, however you want to say, I'm picking the Bengals to win this game. And I'm picking them to cover the 3. I think offensively they're playing really well. Obviously, you don't really want to fuck around with Pat Surtain in Denver. But I like the Bengals to win this game. I like the Bengals to cover. And create some chaos for Week 17. Because everything else seems like it's going to be pretty solid here. So I would like to see one of those games flex to a Sunday nighter. Probably bang. I don't know. We'll see what other scenarios there are. But I would like to see the scenario to play out all the way into Week 17 for this. Next game here is Saturday night, and we have the Cardinals going into LA. You know what? Yeah, okay, we'll go back here. So one thing I wanted to touch on is throughout this, I wanted to target a couple of props that I would probably look at. So going back to the Chargers game, I do like Herbert at over 200 to 225 alternate passing and rushing yards. I also like McConkey with an alternate reception, alternate receiving yards, depending on what you want to do. I'm also okay with just taking his yards. I think he's at like 71.5. I'd be okay with taking that. I like Sutton in his receiving yards. I like to alternate it down to about 50. I think his receiving yards are 62.5, 68.5, something like that. I would not mind getting him down to like a 50 plus. I think you can get that around a minus 310. Obviously, like everything, Jamar Chase, he's the best receiver in football this year, putting up all kinds of points. You want to alternate him down to 80 or so, that's fine, but I wouldn't mind taking him at the 92.5. So now that leads us to Saturday night. You got Arizona at the Rams. Arizona's eliminated from playoffs. I believe the Rams have already clinched. So the Rams, can clinch the division. Oh, Seattle's still in the division race based off their win last night. So the Rams can clinch the division with the win and a Seattle loss. So Seattle's already won, so that's irrelevant. Strength of victory, Seattle, 3.5 win. Okay. So they definitely need a win in order to stay in this thing. So I like the Rams to cover the 6.5 here at home. The Rams are playing well; they're finally healthy. But I don't really like to get mixed up with the wide receivers, Puka and Cooper. You never really know who's going to be the one. Puka, obviously, you lean towards it. But what I really like the most here is I like Marvin Harrison with catches. I think his number's at 3.5. I like that as over. I think he's going to – I'm always a big fan, and we'll talk about this more as this channel begins to grow into the offseason and we talk about fantasy projections and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of second-year receivers. I think second-year receivers are really when you see that growth. I think if you get a lot of production from a rookie receiver, that's more than I would ever expect. So I think towards the end of the first year, I think you start to see progression from those rookie receivers. I like Marvin Harrison over on his catches at 3.5, and I also I think you can get Kyler Murray alternate rushing and passing yards around 225, maybe comboing those two. Those are two of my favorite bets for that game. But I do like the Rams to cover 6.5 at home against the Cardinals. God damn, these big spreads always get me the most here. The Jets at home on the road against the Bills. I'm going to be real honest with you. There's not a whole lot I like here besides James Cook. I just think, the Bills are pretty much locked up into that number 2 seed. Let me see does it even say anything about the Bills here? Nope, they're not even in a clinching scenario. So they're pretty much locked up in that number 2 seed. I don't expect Allen to be Superman today. I do like the alternate yards between James Cook and passing, rushing. If you get him at 60 like I did last week, I love that. I also like the Jets to cover this 10. I think this is Rodgers is actually playing okay. Everybody likes to hate on that guy, and that's okay. I get it. He causes a lot of it himself, but I like the Bills to cover the 10. The Jets to cover the 10. I like the Bills to win, Jets to cover. Yeah, I like that one a lot. The next game, my phone just went off. So we got so Saints are rolling out. Okay, we got a bunch of announcements coming out here. Anthony Richardson is questionable against the Giants. I am going to go ahead and take the Giants. Giants are at home, and they're 7.5 point favorites. I know Jonathan Taylor will probably control this game against the Giants. But I'm going to take the Giants at home plus 7.5. And that's also a pray for me that maybe the Giants get a win and this draft order gets shaken up a little bit, me being a Raiders fan. So, if Anthony Richardson was playing, I'd probably snag the 7.5, run it. But on the road, no, they play. With Anthony Richardson playing, take the 7.5. Without Anthony Richardson, maybe take the Giants plus 7.5. I'm staying away from this game altogether. I do like probably an alternate rushing yards or alternate receiving and rushing for Jonathan Taylor. Maybe get it to 70 or 80. I probably like that. If another one that most people don't think about is if Richardson's not playing, maybe rush attempts. Maybe you get rush attempts for Jonathan Taylor too. Look at what he on his average, what it is. So I would look at rush attempts and maybe an alternate rushing yard line for him and for him to score a touchdown. Those would be the ones I would look at in that game. My Raiders going to New Orleans, and boy, I could tell you when this game was announced, this was a big game for the Raider Nation. This is a big game for our boy Derek Carr. But I think overall the way this season has gone for everybody, I think it's pretty disappointing where we are and what this looks like. So you got the Raiders that are 1-point favorites. Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara were just ruled out. I don't know what to expect here. The Raiders seemed to play pretty passionate football last week against Jacksonville, just damaging their draft stock even more. But you know what? If they get down to this pick 6 or 7, there's still going to be quarterbacks there. I love Shedeur Sanders. I don't think we get him at 6 or 7, so I would have loved for us to be 1 or 2 to make that happen. But Dylan Gabriel is going to be there. There's going to be a lot of players, so I think this is more about pride for the Raiders than anything else, and they need to finish strong for Antonio Pierce to have a chance to keep his job personally. So 1-point favorite for the Raiders, Spencer Rattler over there. Still some playmakers on the Raiders defense. I like the Raiders to win and obviously cover the one. I like that. I like that for them. A lot of Raider fans here from California going out there, so I hope for their sake they go and have a good New Year's on Bourbon Street there with the Raiders win against the lifeless Saints, really. So I mean, I think when we first saw this, we were hoping for Carr versus the Raiders, and that would have been a really something fun to talk about, especially being a Raider fan and being a big Derek Carr fan. But as you can see, actually, about this way, I got a autographed Derek Carr. I'll go the other way right there. Sign it there. I got a painting over there. Big fan. Obviously, Raider Nation at heart. So I got the Raiders -1.5, but I think we all anticipated more for this game. Carolina Panthers are going into Tampa. 8-point dogs. I'm taking Carolina. I mean, when you look at the last couple of weeks, I love what I see from Carolina. I don't like what I see from Tampa Bay. I know Tampa Bay's fighting for their playoff life at this point. Atlanta can clinch a division win with a win and a Tampa Bay loss. But I still like Carolina. I like maybe the Bucks to win, Panthers to cover. But boy, I would not put it past Carolina to win this game outright, but I'll definitely take the 8 points with them. Like Chuba Hubbard here, on his alternate rushing yards, rushing and receiving combined. Yeah, I'll take Panthers +8, no problem. Tennessee, Jacksonville. I don't even know what to say about this game. I don't even know what to think. Jacksonville just lost to the Raiders. I'm going to take Tennessee +1. I no science here. It's supposed to be rainy, I believe, in Jacksonville. They were actually practicing with water hoses today for Tennessee, so I do like to see. Ooh, I'm moving this thing around. I do like Pollard, and maybe his receptions, maybe his rushing and receiving yards combined. I like Pollard in this one, but that's it. I probably would stay away from everything else. Miami going into Cleveland. There's some updates for Cleveland too. Let's stand by here. What did it say? What did it say about Cleveland? It was here. There was an update. Something about, quarterback situation. But if you got Dorian Thompson playing quarterback, I'm taking Miami. I like Miami anyway. Defense is playing well lately. I like Miami on the road, 6.5. And my absolute favorite thing in the world to bet right now is Devon Achane receiving yards. I wouldn't mess with his yards like combined because it gets pretty high. But if you can get him at like a 20, 25 or 30 alternate receiving yards plus his catches, maybe get it to like 4 or 5. I love that. I'd eat that shit up. I take Miami -6.5 and target Achane's receiving his receptions. Okay. Couple of really good games here to finish off Sunday. Can't really talk about Monday too much, but you got the Packers on the road in Minnesota. Let me think about this one, guys. This is a crazy one for me. I'm moving things. I like the Packers. I think the Packers are playing well. I think Minnesota's been pretty questionable lately. They were questionable before they've started to come on. I like the Packers to win this game outright, and I like you really can't bank on anybody on the Packers offense except for Josh Jacobs. So I am all about the Packers plus Jacobs. I like to go ahead and give me his receiving, his receptions, and maybe his combined yards. Because when he catches the ball, he catches the hell out of the ball. And they're going to be inside, fast track. I like Jacobs with maybe like three catches. I don't know what that is. I'm just off the top of my head. I think he averages about 3 or 4 when he's getting the ball like that, when the game plans for him in the pass game. So give me Jacobs with 3+ receptions on that. I don't even know what that is, but I would be willing to bet that's a decent one. Atlanta going into Washington. I don't know what the weather's going to be. Let's see here. Makes a big difference here. How about Sunday? Daily. Hold on. Sunday, showers and spots in the morning. Periods of rain. Give me Bijan here. I love Bijan with maybe like 80-plus receptions or 80 receiving and combined receiving and rushing yards combined. I also like him to score a touchdown. I do like an alternate passing and rushing yards for Jaden Daniels here. Merritt McLaurin is now I just got an update on my watch. He is healthy, so obviously I like him with receptions and yards as well. Those would be the ones I target. But I ultimately like the Commanders to win this game. I like the Falcons to cover, Commanders to win. I see this being a 3 or 4 point game. Give me the Commanders 23-20. Just keep the Bucks in it one more week and keep it going. The Lions and 49ers. I'm not touching the 49ers. Give me the Lions -3.5. I think my buddy Tyler would agree at this point. Nothing we could do or say about this anymore. I do love Jahmyr Gibbs. Give me Jahmyr Gibbs to score a touchdown. Give me Jahmyr Gibbs to hit his alternate line, maybe of 80 yards for rushing and receiving. I love that. Hit him with the receptions. Whatever it is you want to do. You want to build a little parlay around Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm all about it. That's what I would focus on with those games. I do like Lions -3.5. So, other than that, I think that's all. I have. A lot of exciting week of football. Obviously, we got Saturday NFL, Sunday NFL, Monday NFL, Tuesday college football playoff, Wednesday college football playoff, right into Thursday night NFL. So, in week 18 coming up. So, if you haven't already, there's a video at the end of this that tells you all of our socials. If you could please go on and get a like and subscribe. We're also I'm putting out daily lock picks, or every few days lock picks out on TikTok. If I'm trying to remember, I think I'm 32-5 since Thanksgiving Day. It's getting a lot of fun. I get some friendly or not so friendly banter back and forth on there, and I think it's getting to the point where we're starting to get more views on there and whatnot. So if you could, please hop on TikTok and take a look. Give us a like, follow, subscribe on YouTube. It'd be great too. Comments help in the algorithm, get people to see this more. So that's all I have. Everything I just told you about sports gambling too, like guys, you're probably gonna lose, right? Like things happen. I'm not telling you it's a guaranteed win. I will put out what I consider are locks on the TikTok account throughout the day. And again, 32-5 in those since Thanksgiving Day. That's pretty good. Like it's hard to really say that 32-5. People got mad at me the other day because Curry missed his number. Well, guess what? Curry went 2 of 13 from the field. That never happens. Okay, that was one of them. Like 5 times in over a month I've missed. 32 times I've hit. So that's a net positive for you. The other thing is, guys, I'm putting these things out. You can do them individually. You can add things to them. You can add props. You can run them at that. You can run them at my locks of the day. But that bet might only be -200. So you bet 50 and you win 75. I'm okay with that. You may not be. You want to add more to it, that's fine. But build around those two. The 2 or 3 that I put out to you. I think that's a good starting point. So other than that, enjoy the weekend of football. And I hope to see you guys on Monday when we're making our college football picks. Have a good day. Thank you for watching. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we hope you join us again. If you could, please give us a like, subscribe, or follow at any of these social medias right here. And if you have any questions or concerns or something you want to discuss, please send us an email at tiltedpodcast24@gmail.com. Thanks, and have a great day.